Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about School Spirit Season 2. So this came out in early 2025. I finally got Paramount Plus so I can start watching this show again. Now, I've already reviewed Season 1 2 years ago because that's how long it took for Season 2 to come out. Seriously, what is up with all these streaming shows where the next season takes literally 2 years just to come out? Broadcast TV could come out in just 1 year span. There's a lot of different reasons as to why, but one reason could be is because now in streaming, for some bizarre reason, stars are not tied down to just one contract. Back in the day, if you signed up for a show, like say Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you're obligated to stay on that show and that show only. And you can't really make movies and stuff. You're not really allowed, but you can have some like leeway room in between seasons and stuff. Nowadays, stars, especially the main stars, are taking on multiple projects. They're in one or two shows and they're doing multiple movies. Like take Peyton List, the main star of this show. She is in this show and she was in Cobra Kai before Cobra Kai finally came to an end. Then take Jenna Ortega. She's in Wednesday, but she was doing multiple movies in between like season 1 and 2. She did at least 4 movies and stuff. And that takes up the time and you have to wait and scheduling conflicts and stuff like that. So yeah, it literally took 2 years for the next season of this show to come out. And you can kind of tell because the stars are getting a bit older and stuff. Like some of these stars are in their like mid 20s, late 20s, or in the case of what's her name? I can't think of her name. The one girl who died in 1970. She's like in her early 30s and stuff. But yeah, so season 1 is by far my favorite. I like season 2, but season 2 has some writing issues, in my opinion, and some format issues. Season 2, while like I said before, is good, is not as juicy as season 1. See, the premise of this show is the girl named Maddie. She is played by Peyton List. She wakes up in the first episode of season 1 and she is a ghost and she's wondering how the heck did she die? Nobody saw it. And so you go throughout the entire 8 episodes, which both seasons are 8 episodes. You go through all 8 episodes trying to figure out who killed her. So it's a murder mystery and it's a drama. It's a teen drama. So you have her main cast of like character, which are like her friends and her former friends, her mom, who's an alcoholic, and like some other like characters like teachers and stuff like that. So each episode spends time with those characters trying to figure out if one of them had a motive to kill her. And so you're really thinking one of those characters did it, you know what I'm saying? And the way certain like episodes are written, because they flip the script and you literally find out they had nothing to do with her murder and stuff. But you assume because of how the writing is. That was pretty good and pretty juicy. It kept you intrigued and stuff like that. All to find out nobody killed her per se. What happened was she went down into like the basement and she saw 2 ghosts. And you're not supposed to be able to see ghosts, but somehow she was able to. And one of the ghosts, a girl named Janet, ran towards her and pushed her. She flew back, hit the back of her head, and it was bleeding. But what had actually happened is that Janet pushed pushed Maddie's soul out Maddie's body, and she went inside Maddie's body. And the cliffhanger shows her driving off and, leaving the school premise and running over Xavier and everything. And also stealing a bunch of money. So it sets up the premise of next season of, okay, what is Janet's motive? Is she evil, and why did she do what she did? Is Xavier dead or alive? Simon is freaking out because he's been talking to Maddie's ghost the entire time, but then when he sees her physical body moving around, he thinks he's hallucinating about Maddie's ghost and starts to freak out and go crazy in the head and wants nothing to do with her. So it set up a pretty good season 2 and everything. But they never explain in season 1 why Simon can see Maddie in certain places of the school. He can't see her all the time. He only sees her in certain areas. And so you think, okay, cool. Season 2 is gonna like explain all this, and we're gonna get some answers and all this and that. And that what had me a little worried. It had me worried because I'm kind of like, okay, murder mystery solved. That was the whole premise of the first season. So what the heck are they gonna do in season 2? How is Maddie gonna leave the school premise? Because she can't, because there's a ghost barrier around, because where you die is where you have to stay. So she is trapped at the school with the rest of the ghosts there. And nobody else knows that Maddie is a ghost except for Simon, and he no longer believes it. So what the heck is going to happen in season 2? I said this in my review of season 1. It's going to be probably like an obstacle because they have to figure out what the heck are they going to do in season 2. Well, I was worried, and my worries were slightly justified, slightly and everything. Because it's kind of like they started coming up with a bunch of weird, crazy stuff. It went from a teen drama about ghosts to now about a supernatural sci-fi type show about like scars in the red room and your keys to go inside and the exits right there. Once you come to reality of like, ready to move on and stuff like that, you can go through your scar and go and ascend into the afterlife because you're in purgatory, and just a bunch of other questions. And so because of that, the pacing of season 2 is a bit off. The writing is a bit off. There are still more questions than there are answers and stuff. Because they're trying to explain this new sci-fi supernatural thing they created, and they're not doing a very good job. There are tons of filler episodes because we're no longer trying to figure out who killed Maddie and all the drama that went on with her friends and Maddie that was really good and juicy. It's a little bit of a convoluted plot with the whole Mr. Martin and Janet thing, because they keep on trying to keep you in suspense of which one of them is evil. One minute you think Janet is evil, then you think she's good, then evil, then good. They do that from the beginning of the season to the very end of the season. Not only that, but Janet knows a lot of stuff that has not been explained in this season. Like, here's the thing about the ghost world. In the ghost world, like I said before in season 1, this is the funnest ghost show I've ever seen. You're immortal, you can eat food, you can touch stuff, you can put on different clothes, but everything resets itself. Let's say you find some clothes in somebody's locker. You take it, you put them on, right? You open the locker door and you leave it open. A couple of seconds later, the door will close automatically. Say you take a piece of paper that a student is writing on, you rip it up. Within seconds later, it resets itself. Now there are rules to where certain objects will not reset themselves. And Janet knows how to do it, and she told this new character she'll teach him how. But how does she know? How does a ghost from 1960 know how to do all this like crazy stuff? Yes, we know she's smart. They talked about how her and Mr. Martin are smart, but that doesn't explain how they're able to do all this stuff with the limited technology they had back in the day. And even as the decades have passed on, they still should not be able to figure out how to do this crap. It's very, very confusing. And that, because thank God it's a season 3. So hopefully we'll get some answers then, I'm hoping. But season 2 should have been the end of this show. Like once Maddie found out what happened to her, she can somehow tell Simon, he can go try to find the body and bring her back and get her own body back. Which technically, yes, they do this season. And it should have ended just like that. Then, after it ends in season 2, what they should have done was spin-off shows of the main characters, how and when they became ghosts, and their life as, you know, the decades have passed and the drama they have gone through. That was really intriguing because there's only a few ghosts in the school and they're always sad like around Christmas time because they can't do nothing. They can play music, they can dance, but the same thing every single year. They can't leave the premise. And so it's just a lot of convoluted type stuff and a lot of like very rushed like storytelling and stuff, especially that of like, you know, the ending. Also, they still won't explain how Simon is able to see Maddie in certain places. Then, like, you know, we get introduced to 2 new characters, and they're okay, they're all right. I like seeing the group expand, and they do add a little bit to the mystery of what's going on. But here's the craziest thing: this season is not about Maddie whatsoever. It's about Janet, the girl who stole her body and everything. We now get to see Janet's backstory, and we don't really see how she became a ghost, but we get told over and over. But this is the thing when they do, they try to flip the script and try to trick you. You won't really find out the answer to the very, very end, and even then, you still won't. And it's the same thing with Mr. Martin. Is he really evil and obsessed and crazy in the head, or was he really trying to protect the dead students like he said he was? Because there's another entity at this school that's so dangerous and everything. But what the heck is it? They're trying to do too much on a show that's really simple and everything. And I miss the format of season 1 where we got to meet Maddie's living friends and find out like, you know, their drama with her and Maddie's ghost friends and the drama that's going on surrounds them. It's not really so much like that no more. Now they're just going through the motions and stuff like that and trying to figure out what Mr. Martin and Janet is really up to. Even when us fans and audience have no idea what the heck they are up to. It is so confusing and everything. And then they introduced this new rule to where it's kind of like, you know, if you died and came back to life like really fast, you can technically see the ghost in the building in which you died, but you can't see ghosts in no other building. How is that able to work? They will not explain that. And I really wish they would because it's really confusing. One major gripe I have with this season is the way it was filmed. I'm not sure season 1 was filmed this way. I'm gonna rewatch season 1 because it's been a long time since I watched it and I really want to watch it. But like, here's the thing in season 2. Now, when people talk to each other, there are a few scenes where the camera pans out and you see both people looking at each other and talking to each other. However, the majority of this season, about like 99%, when a person's talking, they're looking directly at the camera and the camera is zoomed in so close to their face, you can see everything. Hair, pimples, like you name it. Like it's zoomed in so close to their face as they're looking at the screen, but not really looking at the camera, kind of like adhere to it, you know what I'm saying? Like they do when they act. And I'm just like, why is it always so close up to everybody's face? It's very engaging, but it makes me feel like I have claustrophobia, which I don't have. I don't know why they decided to do that. Now, with the writing and the pacing, I think they did get a few new writers. Hannah McPherson, she's a new one this season. She did 6 episodes. And I'm like, why does that name sound so familiar? And so I looked up her resume. I'm like, oh, that's right, Tagged. I reviewed Tagged a while back. Tag was an okay kind of show that was a ripoff of Pretty Little Liars. And the writing was a little wishy-washy here and there, and yeah, that this totally makes sense now with the writing of this season, because I'm just like, why does it feel so wishy-washy and everything? I'm like, that's right, it's her. And so, of course, Megan and Nate, Trendward, I think that's how you say their name. They are the ones who created the show, and they directed a couple of episodes. And I do like this show. It is very, very intriguing. But it is a ripoff of Ghost. Hannah also worked on Time Cut, and I heard that's not a very good slasher time travel movie. Her creativity has always been kind of wishy-washy for me. I mean, Tag was just okay, but just okay. And she wrote one episode in season one and five in season two, so this kind of explains the wishy-washiness of, like, the writing and stuff like that, and the unexplained stuff and the fast pacing. I don't care what anybody says. This show completely ripped off Ghost. Ghost was originally a UK show, but then they made an American adaptation. You can find both on Paramount Plus, and you can find School Spirits on Paramount Plus as well. And so, like, here's the thing about Ghost, right? On that show, if you die in a building, you're stuck in that building. There's a ghost barrier, just like School Spirits. The main character of the show is able to see ghosts because they died and came back to life, just like in this show. What is it? They have their own set of like ghost rules and stuff like that in both shows that are different from one another. But basically, you can't leave like the premise. Now, of course, School Spirits is a drama and Ghost is that of a comedy. But yeah, it literally like just ripped off like, the premise and stuff. Because you don't really see too many ghost shows to where like you die, you're stuck in where you die at, and it happens to be this one person who just happens to see you and everything. But in School Spirits, Maddie of course is able to see the ghost because she's dead, but it's Simon who's able to see Maddie and everything. And now it's Xavier who's able to see the ghost in the hospital. And so, yeah, I don't care what anybody says, they rip this show off. But that's okay because School Spirits is a very good show. Also, in both shows, like the ghost can possess the body of the living. So, yeah, it's basically like a ripoff. I wish more people knew about this show. I wish it was on DVD because I would buy the first season. Trying to think what else before I get into character bios and stuff. Um, Trying to think. Um, no, I don't think I can think of anything else. Like I said before, I just wish there was stronger writing like there was in season one. In season one, they had very strong character development and something else character something about they had strong character development and stuff, like you really got a sense of who these characters are. Now with these two new characters they introduced, you don't get a sense of who really they are at all. They're just kind of there. They're supporting characters for two main characters of the show to give them a little bit more character growth and everything. That's what it is: character growth and character development. And so yeah, they're basically just there to just help like these other characters out, which is fine, but it'll be nice if they have more of their own backstory. We don't really get to see flashbacks of them. We do get to hear how one of them died, but I really didn't pay attention because I just didn't care. They kind of just literally just appear out of anywhere. Although one has technically kind of been there since season one. She's part of the band, but we never get to hear the band people talk because all they do is play their band music and march around the campus. But the pottery guy, he is completely new. Like they literally just threw him into the show and expect everybody just to be okay with him being there. And it's like there was no mention of him in season one. But they try to get rid they try to make an explanation of saying that he doesn't speak English and he's just always in the pottery room. Although he lied and he does speak English, but like he's just always in the pottery room. And it's just it's odd. Like it's really odd and everything. Like it's kind of like there should have been at least some mention of him in season one, but there wasn't. And how the heck did he go all these decades making people think he didn't speak English? Like that, I don't get it. Okay, so I can't really think of anything else. I already said they got renewed for season three. It's probably gonna take 2 years, probably. Might as well get into character bios. Now, one thing I did like about this season was the music. The music always complemented whatever scene was going on at that time. Like in the first episode when the kids are chasing Mr. Martin and everything. And right before they hit the barrier and they went back to their original spots. That was a nice callback to season one, and the music really helped to, like, enforce that. Let's start off with Diego. Diego is Nicole's brother. He's introduced in season two, and I don't believe he was ever mentioned in season one. And he's in his early 20s and he goes to college, and he's a pretty pointless character. He's really only introduced to be the new love interest to that of Claire. And that's literally it. We don't know nothing about this guy. And basically, Claire's having some problems with her family. She goes to spend the night at Nicole's, and then she sees that of Diego in the shower, but we never get to see her interact with him in the shower. She freaks out, tells her Nicole to tell her brother, like, I guess not to, like, I don't know, not to take a shower or something like that. She's irritated for some reason. And so, like, next thing you know, he sees Maddie, well, Janet in Maddie's body at the college. And he alerts, like, the gang and everything. So that's really the only useful thing he does. They could have found out some other way if it was written more clever, but whatever. Basically, somehow he finds out that Nicole and the others are at like this cabin in the woods. I guess he traced like the cell phone or something like that. And so when he goes off with that of Claire, she sees Mr. I think his name is Anderson, who of course isn't the real Mr. Anderson. It's Mr. Martin, because Mr. Martin took over his body. And so she slashes his tires. Diego sees that, asks what the heck is going on, and she tells him that, oh, by the way, the gang now knows Maddie's a ghost. And so she tells him, hey, Maddie's a ghost, and the Maddie that we've been talking to is really a ghost inside Maddie's body. And he just straight up believes her, just like that. And I'm just kind of like, why would he believe such a crazy cookie story? Like, Maddie's friends didn't even believe it, but he just believes it, like, for whatever. He's really, really pointless. And yeah, technically Claire is about 17, 18, but the dude's in college. Like, why do that, Anyways, Yuri. Yuri is a half Russian ghost. And so he's there at the school. I'm not quite sure what year he died, but I'm pretty sure he's wearing bell bottoms and stuff. He is pretty much like he died by having an asthma attack. And then he went into, like, I guess the green room or the pottery room or something like that. And somebody like locked him in. Who? Don't know. And he died. And so when they needed somebody to get answers on like the whole Janet Mr. Martin thing, so they go to him, but they say he only speaks Russian. So what are they gonna do? So Wally's acting like his macho self, and when everybody leaves the room, he actually speaks English to that of Charlie. And to Charlie's surprise, the dude speaks English. Turns out he lied and said he only speaks Russian because he didn't want to do the counseling therapy sections after he died and everything. So for many, many decades or years, he's just been stuck in like the pottery room, making the same pottery plant over and over and over again. And there's weed in there, so he gets high off that. He was really good friends with Janet, but he's very antisocial. He just wants to be kept to himself. He likes the idea of being dead because he's young and immortal and don't have to deal with nothing. So to him, it's very peaceful just making pottery, something he likes to do. And him and Janet spent a lot of time together. So the gang thought like, he might know something like Janet's plan or Mr. Martin's plan, but he really doesn't know nothing. In frustration, I think it was Rhonda, I think her name is, threw like a cup on the ground, but it did not reset itself. And so the gang is trying to figure out why. It should have turned back into a lump of clay, but it never did. Right early on, you can kind of tell that he's into Charlie by the way he looks at him and everything like that. He's a very calm, very chill kind of person, and he's kind of like the voice of reason this season. Him and Charlie do eventually get together, but it takes some time. Charlie's a little nervous because he hasn't really been with nobody like in so many decades, and like he's just very, very nervous and stuff. But eventually they do it and stuff like that, and they recreate the scene from the movie Ghost for Demi Moore, and I think Patrick Swayze, I believe it was, that whole pottery scene and stuff like that. The thing about Charlie that's interesting and a little odd is that he seems to know more than he's letting on. But for him, he probably, I don't know, I get the suspicion he might be kind of like a mole, and if not a mole, then it's like he does know information, just doesn't know how it's connected. So little small details here and there. He probably thinks it's like nothing, but it probably is a heck of a lot bigger. Like when Janet, towards the end, locked Mr. Martin in his scar in the bunker, he's all like, well, the door is going to reset itself. And she's like, no, I'll teach you how to like do it so it doesn't reset. And it's kind of like, wait, what? So there's a way to do that, but only she knows how to do it. So that has to be explained in season 3. Quinn, she's a new ghost introduced in season 2. But when I mean new, I mean she's been there for a while. We just didn't see her in season 1. But technically, she has technically been there in season 1. We just never saw her. She is part of the band. She says while being in the band, you're kind of like in a trance. And it's kind of weird. I guess because they do the same thing every day from like when they was alive, they're kind of stuck in that trance. But whatever reason, she just broke out of it on her own. And it's kind of like, how? If all the other band members are in that like trance and everything. And so she starts interacting with the gang, mostly Rhonda. She only really has screen time with Rhonda, similar to how Yuri only has screen time with Charlie. And so she is kind of just like how Yuri is to Charlie. They're their support like system, like a supporting character. Yuri was there to bring out like, the lost love that Charlie had from many years ago. And for Rhonda, friendship and everything, like, with that of just another female, something she used to have with this one girl back in the day. And it turns out Rhonda used to make music with her best friend, but her best friend became famous, and Rhonda's been pissed ever since. But it turns out that her best friend made a song about her and everything, so she never did forget about her. And it was Quinn that figured that out. Quinn is always figuring stuff out. Her purpose in the show is to figure stuff out. Like, Janet's like shorthand and how she's able to decipher it and everything. She believes she caused the crash that killed her and the other bandmates, but Rhonda assures her that, it's not her fault and everything. Her and Rhonda, they do become pretty good friends and everything. And it's at the point where you really think those two are gonna hook up. By the way, they're always together. They're always looking at each other. And just the way they hugged and everything. And the way Quinn is constantly looking at like Rhonda. But then again, girls can just be friends and that's it. But you know how it is in modern times, and especially in television, you get that like that extra feeling, you know? Now, what's interesting that the actress who plays Quinn, she actually went to school with that of one of the creators of this show, Megan and everything. Not sure if they was friends. Most likely they were if she's gonna cast her in this show. Now, other than that, we really don't know like anything else about Quinn. When she learns the whole thing about the keys and the scars, and everybody else is too scared to go in their scars, she's willing for some bizarre reason, but we're not sure why. Mr. Anderson, the man who got fired last season because he was stealing money and stuff like that. He's Maddie's favorite teacher. And of course, it was Simon that ratted him out. And he has to pack up all his stuff this season and move on out of the school. Well, not move on out of school, but get, out of the school. He's friends with Maddie's mom and they go to AA meetings together. It seems like he kind of has a crush on her and stuff like that. All in all, he's a pretty nice guy. And then his body gets taken over by Mr. Martin. And it's odd, like when his body gets taken over, it's first a mystery. You don't know who Mr. Martin took. So like a whole episode passing, you don't really know until Maddie, I think, goes to Wally's high school reunion. And then all of a sudden, they see Mr. Anderson there. And he's kind of like, and he's making noises like, how the heck did this happen? And blah, blah, blah. So she realizes, okay, he's dead. So you would assume he would like completely freak out. They would explain the rules to him. He would have some conversations with Maddie and everything. They would try to console him. And you get absolutely none of that. He actually disappears after that from the remainder of the season until the end, when they capture Mr. Anderson and he's talking to Mr. Anderson, talking about, my dad always taught me that those who can't do teach. Well, I love teaching and blah, blah, blah and stuff like that. In order to get their bodies swapped again, they just have, Mr. Martin is tied up in a chair inside of Anderson's body. All Simon does is kick the chair over with Anderson's body in it. It falls on Anderson's ghost body, and that's how they swap back. You just have to literally go inside somebody, and that's it. They don't show the visual because they didn't have the money, but is that simple? I'm just kind of like, okay. After that, Simon tells him like, sorry for ratting you out, and they think you stole Diego's car, and he's all like cool and everything. And it's kind of like, oh, they're trying to have an MCU humor moment and everything. So he goes to the police station. He tells Xavier's dad about the whole Ghost and Maddie thing, and what's her name, Maddie's mom is there, so they head back to like the school, and the parents just believe them straight up. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand how the adults just believe in ghosts like all willy-nilly. Xavier's dad's a heck of a lot better this season. They talk a little bit more. He's worried his son got hit. He's investigating who hit him, trying to find Maddie and everything because, they supposedly, she burnt down like a house and everything. And so basically with him, it's just they talk and he lets his son just go wherever he wants, especially at night, and like, where you been and blah, blah, blah. And then son just goes off again. And he tells Xavier tells his dad that, yo man, I saw a ghost when I was in the hospital. His dad doesn't necessarily believe him until he talks to Maddie's mom. And Maddie's mom's all like, Maddie's been acting so weird. She talks different and that different. He's all like, I guess what Xavier's saying is true. They just straight up believe them. Maddie's mom this season, pretty much every time she gets a bulletin about like a dead body, she rushes to it to see if it's her daughter. She's in tons of grief and she's going to AA meetings. At some point in time, Janet comes back in Maddie's body to like Maddie's home so she can be taken care of and everything because she's out of money and everything like that. Her mom's ecstatic, but then she starts to notice her daughter doesn't really act the way she used to, but she doesn't think anything about it. She doesn't want nobody asking Maddie no questions. Maddie doesn't want to go to school no more, so she doesn't let her, none of that crap. But then all of a sudden, the gang kidnaps Maddie's body so they can take her back to the school because Janet doesn't want to go. Because of this, Maddie's mom thinks she ran away again and she goes and starts drinking again, breaking her sobriety. Only towards the end, when I tell you about the whole Anderson and Xavier's dad, where she rushes to the school to see Maddie's dead body in the ambulance and goes off to the hospital and everything. Ambulance. I couldn't get that out. Mom really doesn't have much to do, just like Xavier's dad doesn't have much to do. And so they kind of just there to tie in from last season. But kind of, I mean, like, you know, I kind of get why they brought in Maddie's mom again, especially when she came back home. Xavier's dad, yeah, I guess he got as much screen time as he needed. Claire doesn't do much of nothing this season, and I mean almost nothing. Basically, she has now abandoned her cheerleading friends and quit cheerleading. This pisses off one of her cheerleading friends because she doesn't understand why she's getting abandoned for a bunch of dorky people. Claire has now joined the gang and everything. She's hanging out with Simon and Nicole and Xavier, and her and Xavier are completely 100% broken up. And so she starts to talk a lot more with Nicole, of all people, telling Nicole that she can't stay at her house because her and her parents are getting into a huge argument and she wants to stay the night with her. We never get to see this argument. Is it really happening? Who knows? But it would be nice to see. This is one problem I'm having with this season. Sometimes for certain characters, they tell, but they don't show. It would be nice to see that argument. Plus, her parents don't seem to really care that she's gone until her mom starts texting her, but they never like see her interact with her mom. And so her and Nicole start spending a heck of a lot more time this season, and she even has a scene with Simon when she's upset. She does not believe Maddie is a ghost until Maddie tells Simon to tell her about Lola, a stuffed animal that Claire gave her when Maddie's dad died. It's only then and there she starts to believe, and she starts trying to help solve this whole Maddie mystery and everything. So they go looking for, like, you know, Maddie's body, which Janet is in at the college and stuff like that. And like I said before, her love interest is now Diego, which is kind of gross because he's older than her and stuff. But she should be like a senior in high school, so that's about 18, so that is an adult. If she's not 17, then gross. Other than that, like I said before, she doesn't do nothing. It would have been nice to see some more drama between her and her cheerleading friends, you know, because she did, like, you know, abandon them and everything. And she feels horrible about stealing Xavier from that of Maddie. But all in all, they really didn't do nothing with her. Charlie, the ghost. So he was the first one to find Maddie and console her last season. This season, he doesn't really do too much. He finds out that Wally used to be homophobic back in the day, and he's really pissed off and upset about that and hurt. Wally goes to him and be like, look, man, it was the 80s. It was a different time. I'm not like that no more. Like, you're my best friend. I love you to death and everything. They later reconcile and everything like that. Like I said before, him and Yuri, they hook up. Yuri is his love interest and now his boyfriend. Other than that, he really doesn't do much. He's afraid to go into his scar. And then when they're all forced to go into his scar, all together, we start to see a bunch of people bully Wally, but not Wally, bully Charlie, but it's Charlie. It's a bunch of clone versions of Charlie. And he tells Yuri his biggest bully is himself. What does that mean? We don't know because they're very vague. And so I guess we'll find out next season. I'm telling you, man, that one Hannah writer, dude, Sometimes her writing can be very wishy-washy and stuff. Rhonda is even more moodier and pissed off this season than what she was last season. She's more mad because of the whole Maddie and Wally thing hooking up. That really hurt her and everything. But who was she jealous of, over and everything? Was she jealous that, she can't have Wally, or was she jealous she can't have Maddie? It's a little hard to explain because a lot of fans, including myself, get this whole lesbian vibe from her, or at least a bisexual one. Because she told Maddie last season that, Ghost has needs too, and there aren't that many ghosts there, so she had to hook up with somebody, and it wasn't going to be Charlie. A lot of fans speculate that she hooked up with Wally back in the day. And so, but then the whole her and Quinn thing and how she was acting about her best friend in the music makes it seem like she's into girls and everything. But anyways, her and Maddie tend to get into an argument this season. And so she finds her college letter and everything. And she goes back to the place where she was murdered because she sees a red light underneath the door. When she goes in, she's horrified by everything she sees, especially the man who murdered her and everything. Pretty much everybody at that school died because of accidents. She is the only one to actually be murdered and everything. We do get the scene of where after she died, she wakes up in the afterlife in purgatory and she's confused and everything. And it's Mr. Martin and Janet who finds her. Her and Janet are really good friends and stuff. And she's the one who fills in the pieces about Janet and Mr. Martin. At first, people thought they was in a relationship, but it was just Mr. Martin who was obsessed with that of Janet. And she's the one who figured out Janet's not as bad as everybody thought she was, especially when it came to Christmas time and those gifts and everything. Or was it her birthday or something like that? And so, other than that, she's just extra moody and everything. But she does help calm down that of Quinn. Xavier. So Xavier got hit by a car last season by Maddie, technically Janet. And so this season he was in the hospital in a coma. Then all of a sudden he wakes up. And when he wakes up, I'm okay, he wakes up normal. You don't see him separating from his body like we saw Maddie. So he must not be a ghost. But then all of a sudden, when he goes into the waiting room, there's a bunch of strange people in there dressed from different decades. And one thing doesn't make sense. The TV, the person on the TV is back from the olden days, like the 1950s. How is that possible? How in purgatory are they able to watch TV from other decades? That don't make no sense whatsoever, and they don't explain that whatsoever in this season. It's just like they're throwing things and seeing what sticks to the wall. And so he sees a man who asks him, are you staying? Or something like that. And then all of a sudden he wakes up. He died for about half a minute. And the man who talked to him was Maddie's father. When he wakes up and he talks to the gang, he doesn't tell nobody that he saw weird looking people. But then all of a sudden, when Simon tells him that he's been talking to Maddie's ghost, he still, for whatever reason, doesn't tell nobody he's able to see ghosts. Instead, he just doesn't believe in the whole Maddie thing along with everybody else. He's always been a strange, peculiar kind of character and everything. So he starts doing research on this one website about people who believe they've seen ghosts. And he starts conversating with this one girl online. This one girl who he has no idea is Nicole. And so they start building up a really good online friendship and everything. Eventually, he does believe Maddie's a ghost, and he has Simon to tell her something. Now, what's really odd and strange is that, when he's in the cafeteria with Simon, and he's looking directly at Maddie, staring her down and looking kind of irritated. And Maddie looks at him back and is all like, oh my God, it's like he can see me or something. So they acknowledge that there's something weird going on, but no, he does not see her and everything. I hate when the writers pull that like crap over the fans' eyes. I wish they would stop that because they're trying too hard to be ambitious and everything and clever, but it's coming out as being confusing. So he wants to tell Maddie something, but doesn't have the courage to do it. Anyways, he's a lot more sillier this season, and when Nicole finds out that he's the guy she's been talking to, they get into an argument. Mr. Martin knocks him over the head, ties him up and throws him in a boat and sends him off into the lake, only for his friends to save him and everything. And so, like, he tells the group that he saw Maddie's dad, and they all tell him, do not tell Maddie you saw her dad at the hospital, because there's no telling what she might do. She might want to stay dead or something like that. But she has no way to get to the hospital, that's the thing. And so, like, eventually, when Maddie does get back in her body, he tells her, I think he tells her he's sorry. Not that he loves her, but he's like sorry about what all happened back in the day. Then a man, he's holding her hand too. So a man comes in and asks Maddie, are you awake? And Maddie asks this man, who are you and everything? And so Xavier tells her, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I can see ghosts and everything. So this is now confusing, and the creators are very vague as to what the heck is going on. Now, when Xavier became a ghost, first I was like, oh no, don't do the whole Maddie ghost thing. Because one, he's trapped in the hospital, so how he's going to talk to anybody? That's going to make too much of a confusing story. But thankfully, they brought him back alive. So this made me start thinking, since he died and he became a ghost, can he see ghosts all around town? No. And so when he's at the hospital, apparently he still can't see them, but he can only see them if he touches Maddie for some bizarre reason. And I don't know why that is. And the writers don't explain why that is either. And so now this makes you think, if she can touch him around town, can he see ghosts? What is exactly his key? I forget how he got hit by the car. I don't know if he was holding anything. Your key is something you're holding when you die. He got hit by a truck. He's not touching a truck when he's in the hospital and stuff. And he has to be holding on to something as he's dying. So when he was in the hospital bed, he had to be holding on to something. What that something could be, heck if I know. They're trying way, 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 way too hard to be clever and intriguing, but it's just coming off as more as confusing. And yeah, he does tell her, I saw your dad and everything. Nicole, they wrote Nicole way too annoying this season and very confusing. I don't understand her motive this season at all, because they try that whole to be clever thing and it comes off as confusing again, right? So anyways, after Simon tells everybody, yo, I've been talking to Maddie all school long and blah, 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 she does not believe him whatsoever, and she does not even want to talk about it. She legit tells him, I don't want to hear about this. This is the end of this conversation. And it's to the point when she's driving, he's out looking for something. And then when he goes back to get into the car, she drives off without him. But then she stops and makes him walk to the car to let him know that straight up, you will not mention nothing about a Maddie ghost whatsoever. And so then when she goes to school, I think she goes into her locker or Maddie's locker, and she puts something in there like she's doing a spell. So this makes you stop and think, what does she know? You know what I'm saying? Does she know about ghosts? And then she doing some type of spell type thing to keep Maddie away. And why does she want to keep Maddie away? Well, it's all a big nothing. It leads to nothing. It's just her freaking out and not wanting to talk about ghosts for whatever reason, because she's on that website. So I guess she starts to believe in some of that stuff some of the people talk about. none of the group members want to like do anything that she has an idea. Like she wants to see a guy named Eugene who used to know Janet back in the day at a nursing home, but they don't want to go, so she goes by herself and she talks to him. He later sends her a message that the whole Eugene thing is kind of pointless in my opinion because he doesn't really help out in any kind of way. They find a video because they have to sneak into the nursing home and towards the end, and they find a VHS tape, and basically is Eugene telling the news reporter that like Mr. Martin killed both him and Janet because he lost his entire career because of her dad. The news reporter didn't want to believe him. So they rush to the school and they say, oh, you know, what's his name killed Janet and blah blah blah, but Janet assumes she's the one who killed both of them. I'll get into that a little bit later. Other than that, it's really useless, and they could have found another way to reveal that. So they could have used that screen time to give like Claire something to do. But anyway, she finds out that Xavier is the guy who like she's been talking to online and been crushing on. Never saw a picture of him, just started crushing on him. And I'm just kind of like, look, this ain't the early 2000s, all right? This isn't the day where people talk to people online and they crush on people who don't have a picture. That was the early 2000s. This is 2025. In 2025, people demand a picture for who they talk to online before they start crushing or even talk to and everything. So that's kind of like some bad writing. Anyway, so like when she finds out it's him, you think she's gonna be happy, but she's pissed off. And she treats him like crap, talking about, oh, you knew it was me the entire time, and you were just like having a good laugh about this, wasn't you? Just like here to make fun of me. He's all like, no, I had no idea this was you. And so she walks off and goes into the woods, and this is when what's her name? Janet starts to try to get free and everything. So he has to go after her, and Janet, I think she's close to getting free, but then this is when Diego finds her and stuff. And it's just kind of like, why is she always getting mad at everybody this season? She's mad at Simon about the whole Maddie thing. She's mad at like Xavier about the whole ghost thing. Like she's just pissed off this season and stuff. She has some insecurities that she doesn't want to let out. And so apparently her and Xavier like each other and they might be an item next season, but Maddie's back now. If this happened, Xavier would have hooked up with all three of them and everything. And so like that's basically it for like her character this season and stuff. She just feels underappreciated for, like, I can understand they didn't want to do what she wanted to do, but everything else, she was just pissed off mad and stuff. You know what? I might as well do Maddie now because this show is not even really about her no more. So Maddie is trying to figure out all season long, how exactly did Janet push her out her body, and how did she take her body? How did she escape? What's going on between her and Mr. Martin? This is the big mystery all season. So Maddie is no longer dealing with Maddie's stuff. She's now just trying to figure this out. And she's figuring it out pretty good. It's kind of like, wow, Maddie is really smart. Didn't know that. And so her and the ghost, they're on the team, kind of like Ghost Rider and everything. And Scooby-Doo. And so that's pretty much all it. It's just they go from one clue to another, trying to figure things out, getting certain things wrong. And the other ghost kind of like, hey, I remember this. And so they fill in the blanks and the pieces. Because of the whole Rhonda and the Scar thing, they figure out, okay, this whole Scar thing must lead to how this all happened. Because Maddie saw a red light and heard Janet crying and screaming when she was a ghost. And she saw her and stuff. So, other than that, her and Wally are official boyfriend and girlfriend now. And they even do it. And it's even to the point where this doesn't make no sense, right? After they do it, they're laying down and you see their back. You see his complete backside naked, butt and everything. Her, you only see her back because her butt is covered up with a sheet. And it's kind of like, okay, this doesn't make no sense. They do it He's completely butt naked and just laying there, but she's the one covered up. Visually, that doesn't make no sense. That tells you she doesn't want to get nude. Okay, fair enough. But why make him get nude and everything? That doesn't make sense. That's not how people do it. When you do it, ain't nobody gonna, like, one person's gonna be covered up while the other person's completely butt naked. And so, like, either they both need to be covered up or they both need to be butt naked, and she needs to get a body double or something. And so I'm so sick and tired of seeing man booty and like television shows. It's all in modern television streaming shows now. It was in the first season and now it's in this one. So, anyways, after they confront like Janet and Mr. Martin and everything, they figure some stuff out. But one thing about Maddie this season is that she's contemplating staying dead. She wants to protect the ghost. She's become friends with them and she feels sorry for them. She's afraid. See, at first they thought Janet was evil, but then they know Mr. Martin's evil. But then they start thinking Janet's evil again. So they was all like, she can't leave them in the school for decades and decades with two monsters who are going to experiment on them. And it's kind of odd that she would grow this attachment to a couple of ghosts, and it's only been like a school semester and everything. But that's how strong of a friendship she's grown with them, but mostly because of Wally. And it's like, yo, get back in your body. So time is starting to run out because Janet got out her body and her body's about to start flatlining. But she's too far away. So she's running and she's running and she leaps in her body and she wakes up in the hospital. And when I stop and think about it, I think Peyton List is barely in this season. It feels that way. It could be because she was filming Cobra Kai and everything. And, that's gotta be tough because this is like her show, you know what I'm saying? She's an executive producer and she's the lead star. This could be the shift towards Janet this season and not so much her. Wally, the boyfriend of Maddie, so he's more rambunctious this time. He will do anything for Maddie. He's willing to fall on his sword for that girl. And he's trying to find out answers, even if it means threatening people and stuff. He's way more jockish this season, acting like a complete meathead and stuff. And so, like I told you before, we found out that he used to be homophobic because he beat some kid up back in the day who was like gay and stuff. And so, like, he really loves Maddie and he will do anything for her. And he really doesn't want her to leave, but he still wants her to be back in the land of like the living. He's even willing to face his scars head on and stay in that room for hours and hours just so he can find some clue as to where Mr. Martin is. And so we find out that if you're in your scar and you come to glimpse with your reality and all this other stuff and you're ready to pass, an exit door will appear and you can go through it and ascend into the afterlife and everything. It is left unknown if he walked through the door or not. That's a big cliffhanger. If he did, it's probably the film Zombie 4 on Disney Channel. If not, then he's probably staying. But why would he stay? Because Maddie's back in her body now. Simon is Maddie's best friend, and he will literally do anything for her because he's like literally in love with her, just like Wally. Him and Wally don't really like each other. Now, one thing that is cool is that her friends that are the living and the friends that are the ghosts, they kind of do interact with each other, just the living ones can't see them and stuff. Anyways, at the beginning of the season, he doesn't want nothing to do with Maddie because he doesn't understand how the ghost is here and her body ran over Xavier. So he thinks he's hallucinating and wants nothing to do with her. After a while, she's able to convince him and stuff like that. And then he's right back to doing anything for her. They're going to look for her body. They find out she's at like a frat house, and when they go in, he knocks over some guy's beer. And the guy's about to kick them out until he's all like, oh, you're going to pay for another beer and everything. And instead of looking for Janet, him and Xavier are getting drunk. And it's like, if he loves this girl so much and looking for her body, why the world is he getting drunk? Anyways, it's starting to mess up his school life because he's about to get suspended because he's always skipping school to go look for like Janet and stuff. he's mostly paired with that of either Nicole or Xavier and stuff. And it's to the point where he blew his interview last season to get into college and everything. After a huge fight with Maddie, he decides he's gonna reapply and do the application again or the interview again for like the college. And so he is determined to get Maddie's body back no matter what. When Janet goes to Maddie's mom's house, she invites the kids over to like eat with her, and he's all like, "Look, I know who you are, I understand stuff like that, and we're not here to hurt you. We just need to get you back to the school." She scares the piss out of him by having a knife in her hand as she's cutting the pie and offer him a piece of pie. So they realize the only way to get her back to the school is to kidnap her. And when they kidnap her, for whatever reason, they take her to a cabin in the woods instead of taking her to the school. Makes absolutely no sense. I swear to God, that one writer's wishy-washy and everything. It doesn't make sense why they went to the cabin. So anyway, eventually, when they do make it to the school, he keeps telling Maddie, "Yo, okay, we got Mr. Anderson back in his body and everything. Now it's time for you." But Maddie doesn't want to go. They argue left and right about that. Then when Xavier calls the ambulance because Maddie has no pulse. The body doesn't, it has no soul in there. And Simon's like, "Yo, you can't do that. Maddie has to hop back in her body. She can't do that if it's at the hospital." So he's running looking for her in the bunker. When he goes into the bunker, the room is red. And so eventually Maddie does get back in her body and she asks, "Where's Simon?" They're all like, "Oh, he's probably like at the school or something like that. We can't get him on his cell." When Janet goes back into Mr. Martin's scar, we find Simon as a ghost inside of Mr. Martin's scar. And he's asking, "Where's Maddie?" Now, the question is he a ghost or is he just able to see them? This is unknown. People assume he might be a ghost. I hope to God he's not, because why? That was like the whole fun thing about Maddie. But if he's a ghost, now he gets to interact with all the rest of the ghosts and everything. Now, the whole experiment with the Red Room scars is that once all the ghosts are in their scars at the exact same time and all the trauma's going around and everything, the veil is weakened and you can start to see the ghosts and everything. That is somehow how Maddie was able to see Janet, because she was in her scar for a long time and the trauma, and it kind of fed into her life force. So this is a big cliffhanger and everything, and thank God again to season 3. Mr. Martin. It turns out that him and Janet were the first students, well, not students, but the first people to die at that school. Is he the true villain? Yes and maybe no. Is kind of odd because you got to listen to what he says towards the end. He's always come off as a very nice guy, always willing to help those students and listen to their pain and their trauma and counsel them and stuff. But it turns out that him and Janet were working on something to cross over or at least be able to leave the school. And so we find this out last season, and the students are really pissed at him because they trusted this dude. So they chase him all around the school, and it's a great chase with the music and everything until they reach their barrier and they head back to where they died and everything. And so after that, he just disappears in the school. They cannot find him nowhere. He's hiding in the scars. When he finds Maddie, he tells her straight up, "Do not pursue this. I wish I never did. This is for your own good." So it makes it seem like he regrets what he did, but he's still hiding out in the scars. Eventually, he takes over the body of Mr. Anderson. We find out in the flashback, he was Janet's chemistry teacher. And so he's always been encouraging her, giving her rides back home and stuff like that. Her father did not approve, and her father got her fired. And when we saw them in the afterlife dancing and stuff, it really made it seem like those two were in love with each other, but it was the writers tricking us and everything. There was never a relationship with them, but they made it seem like it was. However, this might be a one-sided relationship. When you hear the way he talks to her, he is obsessed with her. Like he's in love with her and everything. He likes the idea that she is smart and she has goals and stuff like that. But he keeps constantly telling her, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. So we can be like together and cross over. So clearly he is infatuated with her, which I hate because he's an adult. She's a student. But this was the 1950s, 60s, and a lot of male teachers were very pervy back then. Nowadays, it's the female teachers. And so, like, him and her were running a bunch of experiments and stuff. They were trying to figure out, what makes this school tick and everything, and how they're in purgatory and this and that. So they start doing experiments, and then they find like Rhonda. And I think Rhonda is like the first dead person that they find and stuff like that. And so they learn about like scars and this and that. And I'll get more about the experiments later. But basically, he trapped her in like the bunker. At first, the students thought maybe she's the villain and he trapped her there for our own good and everything. But no, he was running experiments. She actually volunteered because the schools need some, it's hard to explain. But basically, to activate the scars, there has to be trauma. She did not want to traumatize her friends, so she volunteered to do it herself. The more, see, it's something about the scars, they feed off emotion, good emotion and bad emotion. But trauma is a whole lot better than good emotion. So, she kept volunteering to go, but she couldn't do it no more. So he forced her in there. He kept her in there for like over a year. This was enough for her ghostly body to call out to like Maddie and stuff. And he figured this out because a janitor saw him one day when he was in the bunker. Him and her shared the same scars when he gave her his like pocket watch and everything. And so it turns out that when he got fired from school, he lost everything. He lost his fiance, Alicia. He lost his job. He was just going to end it for himself, but nobody else. So he went down into the bunker where the science lab used to be, and he turned on the gas in the chemistry room. But he did not know that Janet came in and she turned on like the Bunsen burner. And that spark is what caused the fire. When they died and they met Rhonda, she asked, how did y'all die? And so he lied and he said that there was like a fire and blah, blah, blah. And I could have sworn he said it was his fault and not hers. Yeah, he lied to Rhonda and everybody and said it was his fault that the school laboratory burnt down. But it was actually Rhonda who technically burnt it, but he technically was going to off himself and everything, and only himself. And so as he's telling this to the students and everything, the strangest thing happened. He tells them that I've been doing this all for you all. I've been trying to keep you all safe and everything. He tells them, isn't it ironic that you all just happened to die at the school, but no other students ever really did? And so it's never explained what the heck he means by that. It makes it sound like there's a greater entity at the school that's a heck of a lot more evil than the scars. And the fact that he said he's been protecting the students, and the fact that he said that, isn't it don't you think it's kind of weird? You all just happened to die at the school and everything. Who caused their deaths really? Because they were all accidents and everything. This is where the writers should have sat their behinds down and been you know what, we're going a little too far with this. We might not have a good resolution for the third season. So now they really got to get creative in the third season and figure out what the heck he meant by that. So Janet locked him in his scar. And that's where, like, Simon ended up and everything. But somehow he altered the scar to where he had like trophies and achievement awards for like Janet, but she said, I never won any of these. So how was he able to change his own scar? We find out that he is able to travel into other people's scars and stuff because there's like a map and everything. So he might not be the true villain after all. So, Janet, the one who stole Maddie's body. I have to give it up. They did some pretty cool visuals when it came to the whole Maddie Janet body thing. Like when they was on the boat, you saw the Janet and Martin's reflection, I believe, in the water, and then you saw like Maddie and Anderson's body on top. So that was cool, and some other visuals that are pretty like interesting stuff and how they do it. So yes, last season she saw Maddie, pushed her, and Maddie hit the back of her head, and she took Maddie's body. So in essence, she did kind of kill Maddie and everything. And so after that happened, you automatically assume because of that, her stealing the money and running over Xavier, you assume she's bad and evil. Like, what's her motive? Why is she running away? And so what is her end game and everything? Well, she just wants to leave the school and go to college. See, we get a flashback of her. She's very smart, very intelligent, and she wants to go to college in 1958. But her dad would not allow it and even smacks her around. He threw away her application and burnt it, and her grandmother gave her a lab coat with her name on it. This is when she befriends Mr. Martin, and he's all like, you should go to college and do this and that and stuff like that. He wants to make her happy. Of course, he ends up getting fired because of that. And like I said before, he was going to off himself. She had no idea there was gas in the room and lit the fuse and everything, burning themselves. And so they held on to each other. His scar is his watch. Her scar is him because she was holding on to him. So they share the same scar. And so so in the beginning of the season, she's just off on her own running away. She has tons of money and she's at the bus stop. And she doesn't really know too much of what anything is. She's buying like a map. She's at like the grocery store. She's very like protective and everything. She wants to do everything on her own, not have anybody do anything for her. She leaves her money in the bathroom, and when she goes back, bam, it is gone. So now she's struggling. And she was going to steal from these girls until they caught her. And they're like, oh, we thought we saw you in college. Or do you go to our college? So she goes with them. And, she eats a little bit of food. She's at the college party and everything. She's happy and excited to finally go to college. Something she's always wanted to do because a lot of females were not allowed back then. And so now she's realized she's being pursued by a group of high schoolers, Maddie's friends, who are trying to find her. Before she went to college and everything, she went back to her old house and relived some of the bad memories of her dad being there. And as the house is empty, we start to hear the door open and somebody walking up the steps. She hides in the closet. I'm thinking to myself, oh no, her dad must be a ghost inside that house. But no, it's the writers tricking us again. I'm so sick and tired of writers tricking us. They tricked us over 100 times this season. So after she sees her grave and everything, she digs a hole and she kind of lays in it. And it's a very haunting visual. But then after that, she burns the house down because she really hates that house. It's nothing but bad memories for her. So then, like I told you before, she went to like the college, this and that. The college girls saw her trying to steal from them and they kick her out. Eventually, she realizes she has like nowhere to go. The police are after her. She has no money, no food, and she realizes if Maddie is stuck at the school, she might as well go to Maddie's house and everything. And she goes there and she starts to pretend to be Maddie. First, she's talking the way she does in 1950, but then she has to like watch a video on Maddie to see how she talks, how she interacts with people and stuff like that. What are her mannerisms and who are her friends? She invites those friends over for food to try to trick them and everything. Now, this is what's really odd, and the writers did not pay attention to. Now, Simon said that there was a girl, blonde hair, who asked for a map. Who asked for a map? A girl from the 1950s who don't know how to use a cell phone and the internet. And it's true, she doesn't know how to use a smartphone. Her mom tries to get her to use one and she just pretends like she doesn't know or just doesn't want to do it. And so, like, okay, she doesn't know how to use a smartphone. Makes sense, she's from the 1950s. Until you see a flashback of her doing experiments on a computer and everything, a modern day computer. So it's kind of like, well, hold up, you don't know how to use a smartphone, but you know how to use a computer, and you know how to do all these weird experiments, and you're from the 1950s. That don't make no sense. Then, and able to figure out how Maddie acts, she's on Maddie's laptop. Put the flash drive in to watch the videos, this and that. And she's using the mouse pad to like navigate through the laptop. She can do that, but she can't use a smartphone? Come on now. And she's supposed to be really smart. So the writers dropped the ball on that. Anyways, they already know she's really Janet and she scares them away and everything. But eventually they kidnap her and take her to a cabin in the woods. And they tie her up there. And I don't know why they just didn't take her back to the school. That is where Maddie's at. More importantly, after Claire slashes the tires of Martin, who's inside Anderson's body, how the heck did Martin find out where they're at? Because Claire never went back to the cabin in the woods. And so, like, how the heck did he even find out they're there? Not only that, but when they left the cabin in the woods, why were they cleaning it up? So they must have broke into it. How did they find? Oh, I swear to God, the writers. Anyways, Simon talks to her after Mr. Martin finds her and he puts her on a boat and they're sailing off, only for her to knock him in the head, swim back, and tell Simon, yo, I'm ready to go back to school and get Maddie back her body. And she explains everything as to why and what really happened. So, it turns out she never liked Mr. Martin like that. And it turns out, yes, they did do experiments to figure out what the scars and this and that are in the keys. And she jotted all that down. Also, she did not want to experiment on none of the students that are dead. See, in order for the life force to go into like the scars, you need some emotion. Like I said before, good emotion ain't good enough. It's the scary trauma stuff. So Mr. Martin wanted to put them in the room. She's like, these are my friends. You can just experiment on me. And so that's what she did every day. Went back into the scars, being traumatized. It was too much for her to do. But once that janitor saw him, he realized they was on to something, and he locked her up in there for over a year. And he told the other students she just ascended up into above and crossed over and stuff. But she was really in the scar for like over a whole year, living all that trauma. Then when he finally let her out, she realized she needed to get away from him. This is when Maddie opened the door and she realized this is her chance to like escape and everything. So she took Maddie's body. And so then it's like, after that, she asked, Mr. Martin, how did you alter the scar and blah, 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 blah. And she tells him like how, like, you manipulated all these people, you use all these people, but you know what, like, I don't need you, blah, blah, blah. And now her door opens for her to cross over, but she doesn't go, telling everybody she has unfinished business to do with Mr. Martin. And so she locks him into a scar in the bunker. And Yuri asks her, yo, this is just gonna reset. And she's like, no, and everything. Like, I'll teach you how not to, I'll teach you to make something reset itself. This is how Mr. Martin locked the kids in the bunker, because he knows how to make things not reset itself either. How did they figure this out? We don't know, because the show will not explain it to us. Now, they made her into a sympathetic villain. All she wanted to do was go to college. She didn't mean to die. And all she wanted to do was escape the school so she can go off into heaven and everything. The thing I have a problem with is if this was 15 years ago, I would be down for this, a sympathetic villain. But sometimes I just want a villain. I really wanted her just to be bad, just to be evil, just to be selfish and everything. Yes, she is a little selfish because she was going to live in Maddie's body, but she only really did that so she can escape Mr. Martin. But it's just kind of like, why couldn't they just make her evil? Like, why couldn't they just do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, modern day Hollywood act like they're too terrified to make a female evil and everything. So instead, we get the sympathetic villain in the evil male. So, all in all, like I said before, this is a good season. And yes, it is intriguing, but I find season 1 to be a million times better. I liked it better when it was about Maddie's story. We got to see a bunch of flashbacks, not just with Maddie, but with all her friends, and we even got flashbacks of the ghost. This season, not so much, because it's all about Janet and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I know a lot of fans, they liked season 2 a heck of a lot more than season 1. They say it's more intriguing. It's only more intriguing because of the whole Scar thing and all these experiments. But the writers don't even take the time to truly explain how the heck any of this stuff works. It's just like they made a bunch of stuff up, threw it at the wall, and want you to figure it out by next season. What if they didn't get a 3rd season? Then this would have been the most craziest, convoluted season ever. But no matter what, this season is convoluted. They tried too hard to trick us so many times to where I lost interest and everything. I was invested in the Maddie story, but now I have to learn about the Janet story. And the Janet story, while it is sympathetic and it does feel sad and everything, there's just something missing about it. Maybe because I went in thinking she's the villain, and I would have stopped thinking that if every couple of episodes they didn't try to trick us into making us think that she is a villain and everything. If they just would have kept it simple and shown that she is not the villain and it's all Mr. Martin, then I would have been like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to feel bad for her. But every time I feel bad for her, then I'm like, she's evil. But then it's like, oh, wait, y'all tricked us again. She's actually good. They needed to stop doing that crap. And I hope to God they don't do that in season 3. Alrighty. Well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.